Welcome to Black Health Matters. I'm Darryl Armistead, your host. This episode is a Zoom recording of Howard University group session led by Dr. Clive Callender.
This is an article that I thought was interesting, that church gave $42 million to HBCUs. It's amazing that very often you don't know what churches are doing to help the community, but this is a wonderful tribute to Alfred Street Baptist Church. That they actually award over $42 million over the past 20 years. That's quite amazing. It's not often we actually see the great things that churches are doing, the way they interact with communities. So I thought it was good to pass this information. Any of you go to Alpha Street Baptist Church?
Yeah, I've been there a couple times. Matter of fact, they had an orchestra, and I used to play French horn in their orchestra. Amazing church. Lots of members. Like, they can't even pass the plate around because they're shoulder to shoulder.
Really?
Yeah. They can't get up and walk around. They have to stay put.
So how do they get the money?
They just pass the plate.
Oh, I see. Okay. You can go to the next one. This is an amazing article that the only limitation on this study is the low number of people involved. But what was amazing is that both the medication and the meditation had great results in terms of reducing anxiety disorder, panic disorder, and other types of anxiety. While this affects so many, actually the number that they had involved in this study is actually, you can see 276 adults. It's a relatively small number. But it was enough to demonstrate that with medication and without medication, the results were essentially the same, both good. Whether it was taking the medication that was this selective serotonin medication, or it was the meditation, the results were very good. The medication worked great, and so did the mindfulness meditation. It's often I've often said that the aspect of healthcare that we tend not to talk about is the meditation, and this study kind of proves that medication has its place, but so does meditation. It's a small number that was studied, but it's enough to demonstrate that meditation is very effective. Now we're in an era in which depression and anxiety is at an all-time high. And so appreciation for the fact that meditation, mindfulness recognizing that the health is the combination of mental, physical, and spiritual health. Something that demonstrated by this study. One of the shortcomings of the study is that there are probably more women than men, but I think over time, with more study participants being, we see the same results.
And Dr. Callender, I noticed that the article said that the in-person results for meditation were better. But I've found with my classes, which are on YouTube, my instructor, puts out 3 classes a week that you can do for 2 days each class, and it's on YouTube. So whenever you get you don't have to drive somewhere to get there. You don't have to worry about COVID, and you could do it whenever it's convenient. And it's to me it's very effective. And I've been in person also, so it really balances out with the convenience and then the privacy that you can have on the screen.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Yeah. Okay, let's go to the next one. Now, this is a study that is surprising because we talk so much about dementia and the fact that, well, we don't have very good treatments for dementia, but we all had the idea that dementia was increasing, but in point of fact, this data says that dementia is actually decreasing in men and women, and black and white men and women. And so it's interesting to see how when you actually look at the data that dementia is actually decreasing. Although when you look at the numbers, they talk about women dropping from 13.6% to 9.7%. Men fell from 10.2% to 7%. Still not huge numbers, but statistically significant numbers. It's interesting that this that the college educated as well as those not college educated. And they suggested that this may have something to do with it. Which is nice to say, but I don't know how you can do this. This is, of course, what would be great to happen. Looking at our inequities that exist all over the globe, it's tough to believe that that can occur. Did any of you have any thoughts about the rate in which dementia is occurring in older people? Does this surprise you as well?
I had a question. I was wondering if it's related to COVID, because when we were locked up inside, had to stay inside a lot because of COVID, that meant that people started doing more mental activities. I mean, they could still exercise and do physical exercises at home, but the mental exercises like sitting around reading the paper and crossword puzzles, and those kind of mental activities. You think that had anything to do with it?
Well, I think that this data is not that up to date. I think 2021 is about the earliest that they report, so they don't really have a good idea of what happened between 2020 and 2022, because that's the period when from 2019 to 2022 is the pandemic. Uh, I don't think this is reflected by the study. If you look at the time periods that they talk about, and they really don't include the pandemic era. It would be interesting to see how this is reflected in the when you look at the pandemic era and see if there's a difference. This is an interesting article that talks about which exercise is best for bone health, and they come up with some interesting thoughts and ideas. It's talking about this 18-year-old with Crohn's disease, has osteoporosis. She's on steroids, and she's already had fractures, and she has low bone density. And they talk about the vitamin D and calcium that she's taking, but she wanted to know what exercise would good for bones. And this article talks about the factors. It talks about those exercises that are good for bones and those exercises that are not so good for bones. And they later go on to actually characterize how to increase the bone density and strength by doing specific exercises. Uh, what was actually surprising to me was that they characterized all of the different ways in which you can exercise, and they talk about the good and bad exercises for bone health. It's interesting how they talk about jumping, running, jogging, uh, golf, tennis, and bowling aren't recommended because they increase the risk of fracture, and even yoga should be discussed because some of them increase the risk for compression fractures. But they emphasize that strength and resistance training are good for the bones because resistance increases muscle strength, mass, and endurance. How about weight bearing aerobic training is also recommended. Uh, Swimming, cycling, uh, don't contribute to improving bone density. So they do recommend, of course, the stair climbing and other things. I think it's important if you are actually on steroids as you age to get bone density testing to see if you're normal, and if not normal, then do those exercises that are recommended, and also take medication which will increase your bone density.
Dr. Callender, I thought Crohn's was a digestive disorder.
It is, but it's treated by steroids.
And the steroids cause the.
It's an autoimmune disease, and it's treated by steroids. Yeah, it is a digestive disease. It is without question a digestive disease, but it is a digestive disease that is treated by steroids because it's an autoimmune disease that where our own uh, immune system attacks the GI tract, and it is associated many times with GI disturbances, with GI ulcers and other complications, intestinal obstruction, and many other things.
So I'm understanding. I think that the steroids cause the bone density loss.
Yes, yes, it's the steroids that do that. Yeah. And once you've been on steroids, that's why you have to take calcium and vitamin D to protect against the uh, bone osteoporosis that occurs as a side effect of the medication.
I'm just looking at, I did a Google search on can black people have Crohn's? It says Crohn's disease is less prevalent in blacks than in whites. However, when it does occur, it is associated with high degree of morbidity and is frequently unrecognized at initial presentation. So finally, there's something that we get less of.
Yeah, yep. Okay, this is an article that was of great interest to me because in the ICU, they use a lot of the pulse oximeters to identify whether you have enough oxygen. And actually, when you actually look at it, the original research was done using the ear, uh, and that is not as prone to be uh, different as the pulse oximeter used on the finger, because the complexion in the fingers is very different. So as we've adopted going from the ear to the finger, we identified what these students at University of Michigan identified that people with dark skin have different results than people who are light skinned, and they found that although dark skinned people may have had no pulse oximeter results, they actually had lower oxygen levels, and so for that reason, there's a re-investigation of whether or not this tool should be used for all ethnicities and all complexions. I think the original work was in the earlobe, which is the subject. But of course, in the ICUs now, we use the fingertips. And I think it's important that people are aware of the fact that people with darker skin pigmentation, there's a discrepancy between what the oximeter may demonstrate and what the actual oxygen level is.
So, Dr. Callender, the study is saying that the pulse oximeters are reading lower or higher than.
Higher, they're reading higher. In other words, while the black patients had normal pulse oximetry readings, their actual oxygen levels were much lower than they had. And so this meant that as a tool for demonstrating how much oxygen saturation you had was not the same in people who are light skinned and people who are dark skinned.
Mhm.
So this is now being studied again to try to see what is the best way to do this, because in ICUs across the country are making decisions about black patients, which maybe fallacious.
Dr. Callender, when I go to physical therapy, after I do an exercise, they check my oxygen level. And each time I do another exercise, they check my oxygen level again. And so in physical therapy, I would say they check my oxygen level about 5 or 6 different times. And sometimes it's low. And that really is what you're saying. It's a lower reading, darker your skin is, the lower your reading might be off. So if it comes in at 91 or 92, 93, then she said you need to take some breaths, and try to get it back up to 96, 97.
Yep.
I just plugged mine in. I don't know if you can see it, but it
Yeah.
says 90, 95 or 96.
Yeah, that's the normal level. So anyway, it's good to recognize that this is an area that is still understudied. But the fact that blacks are nearly 2 times the frequency of the hypoxemia is low oxygen level. And as you mentioned, the desired level is 95, 96, and 93 is
Yeah, what's funny to me is right after Darryl looked up what he looked up on Google about Crohn's disease, yay for the home team when he said that article. But then the very next article, the oximeter, shows another disadvantage for black people.
well, yeah.
I always wondered how that works. How does the pulse oximeter? I know it measures your pulse, but how does it actually measure your oxygen level?
I don't know how it measures up.
Well, it obviously you put it on your finger, and the oximeter sees how dark you are, and then the oxygen level based on how dark you are.
No, it's not based on. What happens is that they have found that the darker complexion people, the accuracy of the oxygen level is not good. Whereas with the lighter skin people, the correlation between the oxygen level in the blood and the oxygen level based upon the oximetry is different, especially in people who have dark complexion.
Hypoxemia is low oxygen, low blood oxygen.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
The normal O2 saturation is 95 and above. Now this is Quantum Health alert for those of us in the district and close to the lane there too. That respiratory viral illness alert, RSV, is increased 7-fold in DC. And what is so fearful is that this is increasing in children and in the elderly, causing more hospitalizations and deaths in the elderly. So the 2 stages, the very young and the very old, are adversely affected by this RSV virus, for which there is no vaccine. And the district is calling attention to this because it wants everybody that can get vaccinated for the flu do that. Of course, that doesn't protect you from RSV. And right now, we don't have anything that protects you from RSV. They actually began working on an RSV vaccine some years ago, and it was found that the vaccine was not effective. Matter of fact, led to people getting RSV, so they had to go back to the drawing board. And this is a graphic that looks at the general population that received the vaccine, and you can see that 65 plus heavily represented here. And I think that the flu season is just beginning, so we've got a long way to go. And these are the recommendations that they have actually, prophylaxis, but really there is no treatment for RSV. There's no vaccine for RSV. But this is an antibody that is recommended for high risk infants and children to boost up the immune system.
So, Dr. Callender, it mentions the influenza, but this is different from influenza, right?
Absolutely. Right, it's just drawing your attention to it. But we don't have a good treatment for RSV. And they emphasize getting flu vaccine for the flu, but that doesn't have anything to do with RSV, except to recognize that for infants and elderly populations, they're more likely to be hospitalized and actually die from this disease.
I have a friend that worked at Children's National Medical Center. Said the hospital is packed with children that have this, and they have beds out in the hall now.
Right, yeah, across the country, that's the case. But this, of course, is what is more frightening is that the children seem to be well known because every year they have the same problem. Seniors are much higher than they were in previous seasons. And that is something that our group needs to be aware of. That is surging among children as well as older adults.
DC is right in there.
Right, right in there, right in the beat. Yeah. I think most of the attention has been focused on the children, and the senior group has been, for the most part, kind of left out of the discussion. But in point of fact, that's something that
John, will you go back up to the map just for a second? I wanted to see what Florida looked like. Oh my goodness. Florida is very high. No, high.
Florida's high.
Florida is high. Okay.
Florida and Puerto Rico, California, New York.
What was that picture that you just had, John?
It's an electron micrograph of the virus,
Right.
respiratory syncytial virus.
It's a mouthful.
Yeah. RSV is easier.
That's something to say. This is more than they've seen in 9 seasons. So it's alarming, but it's something that we should be aware of. Any of your grandchildren have any problems like this? And this is a situation in which your pulse oximeter would document the decrease in oxygen level. And this is the bottom line. No vaccines available. Masking, social distancing, staying home when sick. The same interventions we're promoting during COVID.
That sounds familiar.
Yeah. This is an interesting area, but 16 places where the flu is rampant already. 23,000 people already been hospitalized. 13,000 people have already died from the flu. And then, of course, we're listed among the 16 states having the highest outpatient respiratory illness, along with Maryland, of course, and New York. We're not in the very high category at this time. Hopefully by now everybody's gotten the flu vaccine.
Yep.
Now this is an article that is included because Paxlovid is the treatment for coronavirus, particularly for those who are over 75. And this actually kind of identifies what it is and what it is treated, how it's treated, and actually how you take it, and also what medications conflict with its use. Uh, we come to be familiar with COVID because Tony Fauci and the president of the United States said that COVID and had to take Paxlovid, and it is still being studied, still investigational, but it's now available at all the pharmacies. It also has to go down. It tells you exactly, and it's important to know that if you have allergies, liver or kidney disease, pregnant, or have any serious illnesses, you should let your doctor know because there are certain levels below which you can't take the vaccine. You have creatinine clearance of less than 30%, and you can't take it if you have the liver disease. So then there's a large laundry list of medications that conflict with this medication. It's a great medication, and you take it twice a day, as given here. There's a combination of two medications. Take morning and evening. And it's interesting because it does give you, if you go down all of the steps you take, and also a laundry list of all of the medication that interfere with the accident. So one of them is Eladrin. You see the statins. Callender, then statins again. So that there are many medications, colchicine, which is used for gout, and so there are many medications. So if you're on any of these medications, you either have to stop them for the 5 days that you're taking the medication, and then you can restart after the 5 days. And these are the side effects. And then we have jaundice and other liver problems. Then, of course, you have kidney disease, you can't take it out.
Dr. Callender, several of my friends who took it complained about a metallic taste in their mouth.
Okay. And this talked about the altered sense of taste and the other. The problem is that it's still being studied. We don't know all of the side effects. So far, these are the ones. Any other questions about this new treatment, which I think is important, particularly if you're over 75 and you have COVID? I think it's good for us to know about this.
Dr. Callender, that's good to know because I haven't tested myself, and I have two medicines that I'm taking that are on that list. So I'm going to be mindful. And if I feel unwell, I'm going to make sure I test myself. I didn't appreciate the need for testing, but now with this information, I do. Thank you.
Okay, well, that's quite a laundry list of medications. What is amazing is the statins are there in at least twice, simvastatin, lovastatin. Yeah, so, actually, don't have the blood thinner, but it's also also a drug that you have to stop while you're taking this for 5 days. Okay, this is an interesting article that talks about taking the flu vaccines associated with reduced stroke risks. I'm not so sure that I buy this, but anyway, the data that's in this identifies that if you've taken the flu vaccine, it correlates with a low risk of stroke. Now we know that strokes can be ischemic, they can be hemorrhagic. So the ischemic stroke means that you have a clot that, if the diagnosis is made early, can reduced or eliminated. It's with hemorrhage is different because that's much more difficult to treat. But the numbers are pretty alarming. When you talk about the 4.1 million user analysis, so it's hard for you to find fault with the study. Although I wondered if it's real or not, but the data certainly identifies the fact that those people who are taking the flu vaccine, especially if they take it every year, have a reduced risk of stroke. And as you know, strokes are more common in those over 65. But they were surprised at sheer magnitude of the effect. And this, of course, of adult age groups of both sexes and those about risk factors for stroke. And I take it with a grain of salt, but with the large numbers of people they observed, you have to recognize there may be something to it. They promote this not only to get more people to get vaccinated, but also say that it's a pillar of cardiovascular health, along with the other treatments. Getting the flu shot. That's interesting. Any comments on this association? Anybody else surprised by this, what I call statistical anomaly?
I'm surprised. It doesn't seem like it has any relationship, and yet it does.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. Well, that's interesting. It may well be a reflection of healthier lifestyle, that people who get vaccinated may have healthier lifestyle. I don't know the reason, but it's interesting to see that the numbers are very significant. This is an article that talks about 10 tips to lose weight permanently. And this is something that has perplexed people for quite a while. We see people having bariatric surgeries for it. And you see all kinds of suggestions as to how to lose weight safely. And this article enumerates 10 ways to do it. First, up your veggie intake.
Yay, Darryl.
I really like cauliflower. That's
Yeah, I avoid cauliflower and broccoli because they're man-made hybrids.
I love
And
cauliflower and broccoli.
well, you can acclimate yourself to it, by taste, um, and you can acclimate. If you're not acclimated, you get broccoli and cauliflower flatulence. But if you the more you acclimate, the less flatulence you get. But flatulence is your body's way of saying this ain't good food for you.
the second one is build a better breakfast. It's interesting. They emphasize the point of not skipping a meal because they say these you feel hungry in the afternoon. It makes it harder for you to refrain from sugary and refined carbohydrates. Build a better breakfast. Number two. Number three is skip sugary beverages. Related as the easiest way to lose weight fast. Number four is exercise. Walking is a great tool. Remember that study that said 10,000 steps now? He says 8,000 steps. And then, of course, combining strength and muscle and weightlifting helps as well. Number five, it says eat mindfully. What does that mean? Focusing what you're eating and avoid eating in between meals. That's interesting. Eat mindfully.
I was told to masticate thoroughly. You
Okay.
have to be careful how you say that.
Okay. Then number six is, and Dallas talked about this before, that was spicy foods can help you cut back on calories. Capsaicin and ginger and turmeric. Many of you like ginger and turmeric.
I do daily.
Okay. Go to bed earlier. 7 hours of sleep slows down. Getting less than 5 hours of sleep slows down your metabolism. Keep a food journal. Anybody keep a food journal?
Dr. Callender, this is Sylvia. I don't keep a food journal, but I understand with the Weight Watchers program that is one of the most beneficial methods that they use, that they require those who are participant to log what they eat, and I have friends who say that works out really well every time they do that, and when they don't do it, they kind of fall off the cart.
Very interesting. Okay. Number 9 is resist the urge to skip a meal.
Dr. Count, this is Sylvia again. Now because they talk about intermittent fasting, which, requires that you don't break the fast until maybe like, I think 12 o'clock or 1 o'clock in the morning. And then you eat up until maybe 6 and then you don't eat again. So when this talks about skipping a meal, how does that counterbalance with this whole things about intermittent fasting?
Well, I think this doesn't take into account that. I think this is just what you bring up is something that is relatively new in terms of people appreciating the important role of intermittent fasting, and this doesn't take that into account. Then finally, it's munching on mineral-rich foods. They talk about leafy greens, oranges, sweet potatoes, carrots, melons, bananas, tomatoes, cruciferous veggies like cauliflower. Any thoughts on these 10 tips? Down, what are your thoughts on these 10 tips?
Yeah, generally good. You know, of course, I still object to the cauliflower. Yeah, one of the things about skipping meals, okay, if you can control your weight, you know, with a low BMI, they say one of the keys to longevity, of course, is BMI. To you know, that resists the urge to skip a meal. One of the things for longevity, besides cold showers, they recommend intermittent fasting, but they say that can be as simple as skipping a meal once a week. You tend to overeat if your blood sugar is out of balance, because that makes you hungrier. You know, I find that when I'm like sugar is not in my diet, my blood sugar is pretty regulated, and so I don't get hungry. So like if I've got a gig day where I need to skip a meal, that's fine. That's not a big deal.
Any other comments on these 10 tips?
I have a question. You know, recently I have been seeing on social media the value of alligator pepper. I don't know if any of you is familiar with alligator pepper. They have been showing it to be very helpful in both men and women. It increases blood flow, libido, and all sorts of claims. How far is that true? Alligator pepper, do you all know? Are you familiar with that?
No, I'm not. Darryl, you haven't experimented with it?
Never heard of it. Sounds like it's painful.
It's not painful. It's I have some at home. I bought them long time ago about 20 years ago when I went to Nigeria. It's very little seeds, you know, but they are very, very hot, very peppery.
Okay, you confirm. You say very, very hot. That sounds painful.
Well, it's not painful to your body. You know, maybe it's hot like pepper, ordinary pepper that you eat in your mouth, but it doesn't hurt. It doesn't pain your leg or your feet.
Okay. Well, I guess
nobody has heard about it.
I have not.
Oh my God. Okay, before the end of the program, or this, I will bring it and show you.
Okay, if you have any articles, send it to us and we can discuss it.
Yeah, Dr. Otto, do you take it? Do you eat it?
I used to, long time ago, about 20 or 30 years ago, when I went to Nigeria, we eat it with kola nut. Kola nut. Do you all familiar with kola nut? Those of you who have traveled to Nigeria or Africa must have heard about kola nuts. No?
Never heard of it.
Oh my God. Okay. Yeah, they sell them in mostly African grocery stores.
Can you type it in the chat? You can look it up.
Yes, thank you. All right, yeah.
Well,
Okay, let's go to the next one. You educate us about issues we're not familiar with. This is interesting. Replacing sugar with honey, maple syrup, and other refined sweeteners in baking. It's interesting because we think that sugar is sugar. These iterations of sugars, white sugar, brown sugar, and baking. And those of you who bake probably know more about this than I do. But any comments about this? Because those of you who bake and cook recognize that the role of honey and maple syrup and others in baking.
I think this requires like a taste. I mean, gradually work your way to this type of sweetener, because you sit here and you bake a nice cake and you use sugar, and then you say, okay, I'm going to try to use some of these other sweeteners, and then your taste buds are not there yet. Just like, I done wasted all my valuable ingredients. But it takes time, to acclimate yourself to the different, I'll say, sugar substitutes like honey and maple syrup, I think. And to experiment in your best dishes is sometimes very hesitant, I think.
My husband has switched out syrup on pancakes and waffles for honey. So it must not be too bad, because he's usually a straight down the line person with eating. So
Okay.
I don't do much baking at all, but I have a 5 pound bag container of sugar that is unopened for 3 years now. Have not used sugar at all, so I've switched over to honey when I like to sweeten the coffee or tea.
I use it in tea.
One of the things that I do is when I am baking, I find myself cutting back on the measured sugar amounts and some of the cakes and pies that I do bake now.
You familiar with this argument? Nectar?
Some other alternatives it doesn't mention are things like coconut and applesauce.
What about applesauce?
Like applesauce. What about?
Yeah, you can use it as a sweetener instead of. It's not going to be nearly as sweet as sugar, maple syrup, or honey, but it'll give it a little bit of a sweet texture, a sweet taste.
What about that agave? Anybody know about that?
Agave is very sweet, like it says, 2/3 of a cup for every cup of white or brown sugar. So if you replace it, straight up replacement, agave to sugar, whatever you use agave is going to be much sweeter, and it's still is putting is raising your blood sugar levels with any of these alternatives.
Yeah. What about brown rice syrup? That's really good.
Sylvia, didn't you bake a cake without sugar or a sugarless cake or something? And it was delicious. You baked and gave me some. What did you do for the substitute of sugar?
I don't even remember. It's been so long ago. I went to a vegan class, I believe, and I had the recipe. It's lost in my recipe book somewhere, and I'm back to using regular sugar. But I do cut down, on the recipe when it says like a cup of sugar. I do cut back. I don't take it as sweet as I used to take it, but I'll have to look for that recipe and try to find it for you.
Oh,
Well,
okay.
since Thanksgiving is coming up and people are doing desserts, a good alternative, instead of giving them a piece of cake or a piece of pie, just give them an apple or a banana.
No.
That will not work at my house, I'm sure.
That is not the same.
No,
All right,
That's
give them
not
an
the
orange or
no,
tangerine.
no.
So Darryl, that's what we're getting for Thanksgiving?
same.
Well, we've been arguing about that at my house all week, and I think I lost.
Okay,
Hey,
so
John.
I won't get a banana for dessert, okay?
No, you won't. You'll get a real dessert. Sad to
Hey,
say.
I think all of it is conditioning and taste buds. Dr. Callender has told us before to stop using sugar substitutes. I can't. I can fix a cup of coffee with sugar, Splenda, or the sweet and low. So sugar, the yellow, and the pink. I love that yellow. I'm trying hard though. Got to get away from it. Yeah. And
Spend
to
30
me, the
days.
sugar is sweeter. The sugar is sweeter than the Splenda.
Spend 30 days with me. I'll put you on lockdown, and you won't want any sugar after 30 days.
I'm gonna try it again.
Okay.
Okay, I'll stick with it.
hey,
But
John.
I thought sweeteners had something that causes cancer. Those sugar substitutes causes cancer. Didn't we hear about that?
Just in
Yeah,
rats.
Yellow is still good.
yeah.
I'm trying.
I think there's studies that show that it causes cancer in some animals. I don't know that
Mhm.
but I think if you're a diabetic and you have no alternative, but have to use it.
Hey, John, can I share the screen for a second?
Okay.
Yeah,
Hold
just a second.
Coconut sugar.
Okay. So what I wanted to show you guys, just for a second, you come back in soon, John, is the cola nuts. They're really expensive. And so I'm not going to add any to my cart here. They are $1.87 per ounce.
No, these are not cola nuts.
Those are not cola nuts?
No, 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 no. These are not cola nuts.
These are coconuts.
What
These
is
are
it?
not cola nuts at
They
all.
may not be the ones you're talking about. They are
African bitter. You know, these are not cola nuts.
Okay. All right. I'm out, John.
Okay, let's go back. Okay. Coconuts are not coconuts. Okay. Good. Is that the last one?
We have a couple more.
Yeah. You feel with coconut sugar? Yeah.
Coconut sugar?
Yeah. How does that differ from one type of coconut sugar? One type. I'm not familiar with that. You cookers familiar with coconut sugar?
I'm not sure if the sugar is different than coconut flakes. I've used some cooking with coconut flakes, and it's supposed to be just organic, pure coconut. But I don't know if there's a difference between, if there's any refinement that goes on between coconut and sugar.
Okay. All right. Molasses. Anybody use molasses anymore?
Nope.
Okay.
Yes, yes.
Tell us about it.
Molasses is good for allergies. So that's one of the things that I do. If one of the grandkids gets sick or something and they send it over here to get well, that's one of the things I do. I do just warm toast and a little molasses.
Okay.
Well, one of the things I'll be cooking for Carol and John is called seitan Swiss steak, and I use a teaspoon of dark molasses with it, and it's really wonderful for flavor. but it is a little bit of sugar, doesn't make anything taste sweet at all. At least not the amount that I'm using in what I'm cooking for Carol and John.
Okay, let's go to, this is climate change. We're all enduring it, and we see so many examples of climate change. Let's see, in November, we had 80 degrees temperature. Then we had one of the few hurricanes in November.
Let me see.
They say he was unequivocally to blame, and that rare weather extremes are becoming more common, and that urgent actions to curb methane, and despite the previous focus on carbon dioxide. So, what is going to be the result of this climate change? It's fearful to wonder about a warmer world and how this is going to affect Antarctica, and they're going to be flooding, heat wave storms. You know, we keep having all of these floods, and we think that much of this is related to climate change. Actually, we've talked about it for 50 years, but actually have done little to address the climate.
Dr. Callender, I've witnessed the effect of the warming of the ocean. Last week, I don't know if you remember, I was in Curacao, just 50 miles north of Venezuela, and I was there. Let's see, 12 years ago, just about, and I could see the difference in the coral. Now, coral is at the
Oh my God.
base of the ocean food chain, and you know, a lot of the smaller fish eat the coral, and the bigger fish eat. I mean, the medium-sized fish eat the smaller fish, and the big fish, and you know, a lot of our fish diet, fish and seafood diet, is based on that coral, which is like in the top 40 or 50 feet of the ocean. And I've seen the bleaching where the temperature is so high that the algae that gives the coral its color escapes and leaves this white skeleton, calciferous skeleton. So if nothing changes, we're going to be in trouble, at least as far as a lot of the seafood is concerned, fish and.
You know, it's interesting that we spend so much time looking above the heavens and so little time researching under the water, because there's another world under the water. They were talking about an underwater volcanic eruption, and I realized that we don't really know so much about what's going on under the water. So no one talked about it, and the way that's impacting all the rest of it.
Yeah, scrolling back up in the article, they were talking about putting some particles in the atmosphere to block solar radiation.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and of course, there's no reports of them doing it yet, but maybe in the future, some of the most effective things to to block radiation in the atmosphere is mononuclear gold and silver, because when you have a single gold or silver atoms, they can be dispersed in the atmosphere and block out a lot of harmful solar radiation.
Interesting. Well, you know, it kind of reminds you a lot about the Tower of Babel. And, the fact that God got the human population to have different languages so that they wouldn't be trying to go to upper atmosphere, but we can see that that's happening every day. And the question is, how soon are we going to suffer the consequences of having a way to block out some of those poisonous elements from coming into and essentially that John would say that gold and silver might be a solution.
Yeah, the physics of how solar radiation causes atmospheric heat is very interesting because it takes the like ultraviolet and gamma rays that actually break through an atmosphere, and when they react with gases in our atmosphere, that's what creates the heat. And so, if our gases weren't there that were suitable for producing heat, we would have a cold planet. And so things like the ozone layer, the presence of, we've got holes in our ozone layer, which allows more ultraviolet light to come through our atmosphere and react and generate heat. We close those holes and we get a cooler planet. We can solve planet warming.
You know, I found that one of the major sources of the greenhouse gases is from livestock. The methane from cattle, flatulence, using a Darryl term there, causes, I think, is the one of the major sources of methane in our atmosphere.
Right, but then again, it's the UV rays coming in that interacts with the methane that causes the heat. We block the UV rays, we can have enough, all the cow farting we want.
The other thing too, and Dr. Callender, we've talked about it before, the relationship between daylight saving time and depression. I wonder if, you know, global warming is causing depression as well.
No comment. I have no idea.
Well, yeah, it does. This is called seasonal adjusted depression. And they found that the daylight saving time does increase depression. And that, of course, the counter to that is to get off of daylight saving time just to have a standard time.
Darryl, you in standard time, don't you?
He's on Central.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, a standard time that doesn't, where you don't adjust your time through the year, just stays the same.
Yeah, that's what I've known. You're in Chicago, you got not to adjust this time.
Yeah, we do.
You do?
There's very few places in the country where you don't have to adjust their time. There's a few counties in Indiana, but all of Illinois is on daylight saving time where we adjust our clocks twice a year.
Mm.
And it's supposed to be causing more heart attacks and other things.
Suicide.
I hadn't read about suicide, but certainly more heart attacks. And and they've been talking about changing it for quite a while, but nothing has changed. Yeah. Go ahead. Dr. Gatto, you have something to say?
Oh no, I wanted to show you all how the alligator pepper looks like. It can last for hundreds of years in the same shape and form. I don't know if you can see it.
Pull
No.
the camera down a little bit.
Hmm?
Pull the camera up a little bit.
Oh, the what?
Your camera.
Oh, okay. Can you see it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is
This
that?
one, I bought this almost 30 years ago, and it's still in the same shape and form.
Mm.
This is the alligator pepper. If you open inside, you will see some little seeds.
Mm-hmm.
It's different from cola. The cola nut is very common in Africa. That's what they give people when you visit somebody's house as a sign of welcome. That's what he offers you. If he doesn't offer you cola nut, then you are not welcome in the house. Yeah. So we eat it with this alligator pepper. I know. And if you open inside, it's very hard to open now because I've had it for a long time. Yeah. If you open inside, you will see some small little seeds. Yeah, very little. There you go.
And so you eat the seeds?
Yeah, you eat the seeds. They said it's very great. For what I've seen on social media, very great. You know, it enhances blood flow. It enhances libido and all sorts of claim. It
looks like ginger root.
Yeah, it's almost similar to ginger. Yeah, I think they are all of the same family. I've forgotten the Latin name for this. They put it on the. Let me see. Very.
So you sprinkle the seeds on your oatmeal?
Yeah, you just chew the seeds. You just
okay.
chew the seeds.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, this is another fortunately we hit the 8 billion mark in the world, and it exposes many challenges. We forget that many people actually have, to be kind, have food insecurity. The most populous part of the world is India and China, and the United States, and then Nigeria.
Yeah.
Fourth most populous country in the world. That's interesting because the West African population is expected to soar even more than 75 million. Of course, that does not encompass the entire continent of Africa, but just some of the countries in Africa. But India and China are the top two with between 1 and 2 billion.
Yeah, I got a comment about sustainability, and that's the ability to maintain your resources. A lot of resources regenerate, like such the water supply. We drink it, but then water rains down and it replenishes the supply. Sustainable world population is said to be 3 billion people. We were last 3 billion in 1960. And so, obviously we've increased 5 billion people in the last 60 years, which is kind of insane because we're no longer sustainable. The aquifers they're decreasing water supply. We're going to dry out our aquifers, which are the main source. Those are the underground lakes for drinking water. As far as like population increase, the most fertile places in the world are Africa, with a birth rate of 4, with in India, the Indian subcontinent with a birth rate of 3, So they're the most fertile. That's where our population increases are going to come from in the future, Africa and India. What the Chinese did, their population is a little over 1 billion currently. They went through a large period of time where they said only 2 children per family.
Yeah.
But we're in a crisis. We got a climate crisis. We have a population crisis. We're at the point where we need to restrict families on Earth, or we're really going to be in a world of trouble with the population levels not being sustainable.
You can see the projections.
I'll be gone by then.
What is most interesting is the situation where, as you go down the line here, it talks about how some places feel that God is the person who causes children to be born. A little different from what we the facts, but and this guy talks about how children took turns going to school, and so if we're not going to do better, as Darryl said about our water resources, and continue to grow, this is a population crisis. Not forgetting that there's so many teen pregnancies. 4 out of 10 girls in African American before they're 18. Half children born last year, the mothers under 20 were in sub-Saharan Africa. So forgetting the fact that hunger is still an issue, and that poverty is still an issue. And we sometimes forget that the developing countries have a stake in it as well. And since there's nothing being done in most of the world about having as many children as you want to have, and the population crisis has not yet reached its peak. And then cultural issues is that in Africa, in some places in Africa, the more children you have, the more comfort you have in retirement thought. And as it go down, it also talks about the fact that you have more children than you can feed. It says in Nigeria, believe that it is God who gives children. Well, the more children you have, the more benefits. For instance, that's a point of view. Large population is good for the economy. Well, as Darryl has said, we have 2 crises: resources and population.
Go back up for a minute, John. Where it said what people believe in Nigeria.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. We have different ideas about that here in this country. We think the egg and the sperm. Sexual intercourse.
Well, can I make a comment on this?
Sure.
Yeah, in Nigeria, what I have experienced, I find out that many of the people who have many children are poor people. People who don't have nothing else to do, no job. The youngsters, the elderly, the near elderly people, they just sit at home having babies. Only a few people who are rich might marry 4, 5, or 6 wives. Only maybe 0.001%. But the majority of them that have, like my cousins, most of them don't have job, but they have some of them. A man, for instance, might have 7 children, 8 children. No job, the wife, no job. They are just sitting at home, just having babies. It's just like here, if I might draw some analogy, most of the people who are dependent on the government here, for assistance, welfare, they just sit down home and then have babies. So no matter whether we have family planning, we don't afford, which is hardly exist in Nigeria. It's not going to help. But addressing the poverty rate there, and a little bit of education will help. To minimize this increase in childbearing.
Okay, well, speaking of God, he gave us one job. He said, be caretakers of the earth. So what we did was we chopped down all the trees, we cooked the earth with global warming, and now we're overpopulating it. We're doing a terrible job.
Yeah, he also said, be fruitful and multiply.
To a certain extent, we went overboard because he said, be caretakers of the earth. We're doing a terrible job of that. That's job one, be caretakers.
The thing I have to say is another part that they didn't have in there. We don't have as many wars that annihilate whole villages and everything like they did in days of war. War does have a way of keeping the population down. Second thing that I heard Dr. Ato said, and I have an issue with that. People expect when people are poor not to have sex anymore. What else can they do? It's a natural human behavior.
Yes.
They don't have any money for birth controls and etc. So you're taking all the human quality. Rich have the money to do what they want to do, by the birth controls and etc. What the population should do is the government is to make sure, and I know that's called communist, but not completely, make sure that everybody has a job or some type of resource to do something.
Yes.
The rich get richer. They cut it out so poor can't even make money or even fend for themselves. If they were out, have to raise their own vegetables and everything, they couldn't have all day to do what is pleasurable thing to do, or they'll be too tired. So somebody is always telling me something about the poor living dirty and everything. It takes money to buy a cleaning article. It takes money. When you have children, your children tear up your house.
Yes.
So you got to have money, or unless you living outside and making those children work like in slavery time. So it is one thing after another. So we're saying that we're overpopulating the earth. The main thing is comes to economy. Let mankind exist so they'll be able to self-support. And then they won't have time for that one little pleasure of life that they do have is sex. And a lot of even rich people, they don't know how not have children. So they abort them, they slip up and they have with the birth controls and everything, which are bad for people in the first place. So it's 6 one, half a dozen another, and we definitely don't want wars that will clean us up. They say like forest fires. Forest fires are good for forests because it cleans it out, it prevents the overgrowth, and then they have the undergrowth. not having fires at all. They're experiencing that in countries, states of the West. So we do things to really harm ourselves if we just let nature take care of themselves. Just send the lightning down, burn it out, and then start again. That's all I have to say.
Well taken.
COVID did a pretty good population diffuser.
Control, yes. Yes.
Well, I think if we actually look at the world, we have to recognize that there's a great inequality and inequity that exists between the developed countries and the developing countries. Yeah. It doesn't seem as though enough attention is given to helping the developing countries become developed. And the inequities that exist actually kind of frightening. When you look at places like Haiti and other places that have anarchy, and some places that have worse than anarchy. So how are we going to really try to turn things around so that what Darryl has said is not true? Because it seems as though what he says is right on target. But we've not been great caretakers of and our efforts at equity have failed. So how do we go about making global equity become a worldwide theme?
Dr. Callender, you've always said that there needs to be more sharing of resources because, the rich have so much and the very poor have so little. If there was some sharing of resources, things would be better. We can't wipe out poverty altogether, but if we share the resources, things could be better.
Any other thoughts as we approach the beginning of the end, shall we say?
Elizabeth has something to say.
Yes. Good morning again, everyone. Dr. Callender, one thing, I'm a U2 University student. So one thing that Michelle and Barack are doing is they have a 501c3 where they're going all around the world encouraging young people to stay in their own country and develop it, stop trying to come to America, but stay in their own country and develop it. And they'll develop a network where young people across the world chat and work with each other and share information and develop resources that they can develop in their own country and develop it more.
Sounds sensible.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's a step in the right direction. Yeah. Okay, is this the last article? Yeah. Any other comments or interesting